Well, hello everyone. This is Dale from the Precept classes in Cullman, Alabama, and I thank you for joining with us. This is lesson 3 of Joshua, so let's jump right into it. A lot of stuff to look at. Quick review. In Joshua 1, the Lord tells Joshua to be strong and be very courageous, and you'll find your strength and your guide in the word of the Lord. Okay? In Joshua 2, two spies were sent into Jericho, and Rahab the harlot recognizes that the Lord is with them as the Lord has given the land there to Israel. And she says, will you please spare me and my family? And they do, as we'll see today. Chapter 3 of Joshua. The living God literally dries up the Jordan River for Israel to cross over into Canaan. Joshua 4, we see that the Lord tells them to build a memorial to what occurs, and they did. Joshua 5, we see that God says, circumcise the men of Israel and celebrate the Passover on the 14th day. The men of Israel step out in faith and do this. Even though they are in the promised land is occupied by the enemy, but they submit themselves and trust the Lord, and God does protect them. And then the captain of the Lord's host appears to Joshua and told him that he's standing on holy ground. It's an amazing thing. Chapter 6 is the great story that most of us have heard all of our lives about Joshua fighting the Battle of Jericho. I encourage you to really study this very, very carefully and see what happened in the midst of all this. God laid out exactly what they were supposed to do. We have a lot of preconceived ideas. Make sure you ask the Lord to protect you from a spirit of familiarity. Okay, a spirit of familiarity. A lot of times we're so accustomed to hearing these accounts in certain ways that we assume certain things are right, and they're simply not right. When you see what happens right here, God told him, I want you to get a certain kind of configuration, armed men, 7 priests, 7 trumpets, seeing the Ark of the Covenant, then followed by a rear guard, and I want you to walk around the city. Walk around once a day for 6 days in silence, but I want you to be blowing the trumpets. Then on the 7th day, they went in, they marched around 7 times in silence. They were blowing the trumpets, but then they shouted. Now, if you were to ask somebody, most people think that the entire nation of Israel did this. This is not true. It's just certain groups, certain armed men. If for no other reason, Jericho, we think it was basically the whole town was around 9 or 10 acres. It's 9 or 10 acres, the entire walled fortress. And the nation of Israel was probably at least 2 million people, maybe as many as 4 million people. So you couldn't have that many people marching around a 10-acre spot. That's not what the point is anyway. The whole point was they were trusting the Lord to bring this down. The Ark of the Lord went before them as the Ark of God's presence and the Ark of God's power. So when they shouted, the walls came down, and they came down flat. I mean, it's totally flat. And then it said that each man was able to march in, to walk in straight where he was supposed to go. And some real pictures there for us. Each one of us as believers have a calling, have a thing that we're supposed to be doing wherever we are at this point in time. And we need to be walking in the Lord and His power and His presence in that. We walk with one another, but we can't walk in one another's position or in the calling of each other. They walk in and they're absolutely victorious. Chapter 6 of Joshua is an amazing account of the complete power of God and what happens when we trust Him. Chapter 7 is an account of what happens when man trusts himself. And when man trusts himself, doesn't seek the power of God, and it really shows the fallibility and the weakness of man. Because what happens at the beginning of chapter 7, they're going to Ai, another town, and Joshua says, well, let's scope this thing out. So they go scope it out, and they come back, and the guys say, oh man, don't worry about sending anybody up there. We don't want to hassle with that, don't want to make them work. Just send up there about 3,000 or 4,000 people. That'll be enough. We'll conquer it easy. Got to watch when that kind of stuff happens. They go up there with that kind of mindset and that kind of way without seeking God, and they get beat. The 3,000 are beat back, and 36 of them are killed. And it really, really grieved Joshua. Well, he didn't know what was going on. Well, we know because of the 1st of the 7th chapter. It tells us, it says that Achan was unfaithful, that there's unfaithfulness in the sons of Israel is the way that it's described. There was sin in the camp. That's the big phrase. There's sin in the camp. In our homework, we did an extensive examination of the phrase, under the ban, under the ban, under the ban. And so Joshua didn't know what was happening. He goes before God, and he says, what's happening? And God tells him exactly what's happening. He said there's been some things that were under the ban, but somebody took them. Some sons of Israel took them. So he told Joshua what to do. He said, get the people to consecrate themselves. Now this is really important. Hang in here quickly. Consecrate themselves. He said, consecrate yourself, because there's some things that have been taken under the ban, because this time tomorrow I'm going to deal with it. He told the people to do that. Well, the next day, sure enough, he did it. So Joshua did what the Lord told him to do, to bring the people by their tribes, by their families, and such and such. And Achan was pointed out. Joshua told Achan, hey, give glory to God. Tell me what happened. And Achan says, well, yeah, I'm the one that did it. I took some stuff that was forbidden. And in the homework, it's a great lesson. I don't have time to get into this. But Achan sat there and said, here's what I did. He said, I saw this mantle from Shinar and the silver and the gold. I lusted after, I coveted it, so I took it. You see the same pattern with Adam and Eve. That's what Eve did. You see the same pattern here. You see the pattern with King David when he looked upon Bathsheba and he lusted and he desired and he took it and he wanted it. You see the same pattern in the book of 1 John, the 2nd chapter and the 9th verse. It talks about the ways of the world, and it talks about the lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh and the deception of the pride of life. That is the pattern of sin. Now, what I find intriguing here is what happened. Because they went and they found it. Achan said, you'll find the stuff in my tent. They hauled Achan out with his family, with all of his animals, and with the material that he took. They take it all out and they kill them all and they burn it all. And you go, man, that's a rather harsh punishment. It is a harsh punishment. God is serious about sin in our lives. Now, 1 John tells us if we confess our sin, he's faithful and just to forgive us. And you say, well, Achan didn't have a chance to confess his sin. That's not fair. Yes, he did. That's what that consecration was about. That's what the consecration was about. I sort of believe that if Achan had come along at that time of consecration and said, I took this stuff right here that I should not have taken, perhaps God would have spared him. I don't know. But God gave them a whole day to consecrate themselves, to confess, and he did not do it. There's a real lesson there for us. Now, Joshua chapter 8, very quickly. What you see in Joshua chapter 8 is the children of Israel taking Achan this time. Taking Ai. The first time they approached Ai in their own flesh. Now God said, I want you to go to Ai and I want to show you how to do it. What I find amazing about this is that God takes the mistake they made before. What they did before, they went in their own flesh and they attacked a particular kind of way and they got defeated. God takes that and says, I want you to go attack in the same kind of way. So the people of Ai are going to be thinking you're going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to take what you did in error before, but since I'm in it now, I'm going to use it to my praise, my glory, and bring you great victory. I'm going to set an ambush for the people of Ai. And so the children of Israel do that. They go up and attack the way they did before, and then they start to fall back like they did before, where all the men of Ai are going, oh yeah, we got them this time, they're doing the same thing, let's go after them. So they do. They pursue them, they chase after them, and it empties out the city from their protectors and from their warriors. What they didn't know was that God had told Joshua to set an ambush back behind, and there was a portion of the army behind. And so when all the men cleared out, the army behind just came into the city, and they started burning the city. Then when the soldiers of Ai saw what was going on, they thought, wait a minute. And all of a sudden, the Lord spoke to Joshua, and Joshua raised up his javelin. And it was a predetermined sign. When he raised up that javelin like that, that's when the people from behind came in. They did this stuff. They took the city. They killed all the warriors, and the Lord was victorious in his people. The Lord will take our mistakes like that sometimes in the way we did things and turn them around to his praise and his glory. In the meantime, if there be anything under the ban in our lives, if there be any sin, if there be anything which is displeasing, confess it to the Lord. They confess it to the Lord. Again, I'm Dale from the Precept classes in Cullman, Alabama, and I thank you for being with us. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.